Here we are with Kate from Toronto. I am Daniel here near Chicago, and I wanted to ask Kate and some question because she's been accomplishing some very remarkable results according to actually any method we can look at. Not only the conventional medicine point of view, but also alternative points of view. Usually they frame the symptom that you were dealing with as pretty uh, hard to overcome. Let's put it like that. Okay, and he said you've been doing it, right? How long has it been? Tell us your story.
Like in terms of symptom. Okay, so my story, I mean, 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, in 2005, I was this young kid. I thought I was pretty healthy. I was 22 years old at the time, and I never had expected that I might be questioning like what's my future going to look like. And then I woke up one day and the entire right side of my body was numb, and I thought, "Oh, that's kind of weird." Right? 22 years old, I was active, I was fit. And so I thought I must have just slept wrong and it'll go away. And then it didn't. And so, like a week later, I was like, all right, something's not right here. I need to go get it checked out. And I was the kind of kid, as you mentioned, like the traditional, and then there's also kind of the functional side of things when it comes to medicine. I was raised to go to medicine if there was something wrong with you, and your doctor will solve the problems. And
Like most of
I'm not looking to bash doctors or anything, but it's anyways, I went to the doctors and they said within a couple of days, like, I'm diagnosing you with multiple sclerosis. And I was like,
within a couple of days.
a couple of days. Well, I was in the hospital, and the thing is that a lot of people consider my situation lucky because many people will go for years trying to get a diagnosis and feeling like no one's listening. And I went into the hospital. They put me in acute care, admitted me really quickly, and I stayed there for I think 3 days. And a doctor I'd never seen before walked in and said, gave me my diagnosis. I was there by myself. I was 22 years old and I was shocked. I was terrified. I was like, I hadn't even read about that, right? Like when you were diagnosed with colitis, had you heard of it before? Or Crohn's?
No,
Crohn's,
no,
right?
that's right, Crohn's. No, of course not.
Hadn't heard of it before. So I was like, what? And then right away, I was sent to a clinic, an MS clinic, and immediately they wanted to put me on medication. And I was the kind of kid who didn't like to take medication. I didn't take Advil. So I was scared and I was like not sure what to do from there. So that was kind of the initial what started things for me.
That's great. That's a great story. And then tell us what happened. What was the turning point? How did you manage to overcome that? Let's go to the good part.
There was a bunch of there was a bunch of steps in between that. I mean, ultimately,
Yeah,
so I
of
was
course.
diagnosed at 22 years old and then went to the MS clinic, resisted the meds for a year or two, but then what happened was my relapses were coming quicker and quicker, and they were becoming more and more of a hindrance. They were preventing me from doing the things I wanted to do. So I eventually did go on medication, which is a question that people often ask, like, were you ever on the disease modifying drugs, DMDs, they're called here. DMTs, they're often called other places like therapies. And I did for a while. And the thing is, I just kept getting sicker. And so the turning point for me was ultimately that I was 29 years old. I went to my doctor and I just kept saying like I'm not getting better, I'm getting worse, I'm getting worse. And so they just kept changing the therapy and adding more medicine to it. And finally the doctor said to me like, "You know what? We need to start looking at a wheelchair." And I was just like, "Nope, that's not what I wanted." So that was pretty terrifying, but then I was also the meds weren't working for me, so I started raising money for the MS Society as well, thinking like I want to be a part of a cure, not just for me, but for everyone living with MS.
It's awesome.
And I asked my best friend to sponsor me for this MS bike ride, and she said, "I love you. I will absolutely sponsor you, but you know they're never going to come up with a cure." Right? So that was the turning point for me because it was like the pattern interrupt that I had needed. because I realized
Yes.
I'd been waiting for this like knight in shining armor to come and rescue me, and like if anything was going to change, it was up to me.
So the
So that's
turning
when things
point,
really started to shift.
the realization was that when she said, can you clarify that better for me and for everybody? Like when she said that they're not gonna come up with a care, with a cure.
A cure, yeah. I just had this realization that I had been waiting and hoping and waiting for someone else, for something out here
Yeah,
to come
yeah,
and rescue me. And I mean, all along I'd been blaming, even from when I was diagnosed, I blamed God, the universe, my family, my upbringing, the school system, blah, 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 all these different things outside of me. These are the reasons that I'm sick. And then realizing that, well, if this is why I'm sick, this is also where the solution's going to come from.
that's right.
And so then when the rug was pulled out from under me with that, like the solution's not going to come from out here, it needs to come from in here. I was like, okay. And it hurt and I was angry at first, but when I started to think about it, it was like, what can I do? How can I help? How can I fix this or help this move in the direction I want it to? And the like taking radical responsibility is one of the biggest parts, in my opinion, of what's led to where I am today. So,
So
yeah.
you basically understood that you had to take responsibility 100%
Hmm.
of what you were going
Yeah,
through.
no one was coming to save me. If no one's coming to save you,
You
it's up
might
to
as well
you,
do it yourself,
right?
right? Yes, yes, awesome. I mean, it's
Hmm.
it's very uh, empowering what you're saying. And unless you want to add something else, I want to share with you some of my interpretation for what I went through myself, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah, for
we
sure.
all have our
I would say
different.
it, I would agree with
Go ahead.
I would agree with you that it's very empowering. At first, I don't think it was. At first, I was like, this is BS. Like I didn't see it as this opportunity at first. It was a slap in the face.
No, no,
But it was
it's
also
empowering to
the
hear it
like the
now.
pattern interruption.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Looking hindsight's 2020, right? Now I can look back and I'm like, thank God that that happened because if it didn't, I probably wouldn't be alive today, if I'm honest, right? So I'm
totally, yeah.
grateful now that that happened because it opened my eyes to what I was doing, what I was focusing on, the direction I was going, the path I was heading down. And now it's like, heck yeah, I've got this, right? So it is very
Awesome.
empowering, but at first it may not feel that way, right? If you're someone
Yeah,
who's
totally.
in the
At
thick of it
first,
right
not
now, to hear me
because
say,
yes.
hmm,
Can you hear me fine? Can you hear me fine?
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
There's
I
no
think it's
there's
delayed a
no
bit, but
background noise or something. Okay, that's good. I was just trying to make sure.
mm,
So, yes, I totally agree with you. Like, it's empowering now to hear the story. And of course, when you were there, like when I was there too, it's not when you're still dealing with the problem, it's not like, yeah, you still have to solve it, right? So you get the
yeah,
insight, the reframe, the realization, but then you have to still do create the transformation, right? So what I wanted to share
yeah,
is this what you're saying is very consistent with this point of view that was really helpful for me to heal myself from Crohn's disease
hmm,
and other things that I dealt with. Because basically, this is another map, right? We know there's multiple maps, right? Multiple models, so it's not the truth.
hmm,
Yet it's very empowering because basically it says that um, many times there's a very specific emotional component behind certain chronic
hmm,
symptoms, actually behind any symptoms. Okay, but especially when they're chronic, this can be something that is very empowering to know, right? So for me, learning
hmm,
this was not the turning point, but was like, okay, I can solve this. I didn't know how yet, but I knew I could solve it, right? And for me, the emotional component was this, let's say, was a struggle with my parents, like this issue with relationship with my parents, especially my mother.
hmm,
Um, and it might be interesting to you to know what is the interpretation from this, it's called the five biological laws
hmm,
about MS. the thing that I want to tell you though is that they also this model, this map, is very precise when it comes to associating the part of the brain that is directing and managing the part of the body having the symptoms or just the function, the physiology of that part of the body,
Hmm.
and the emotional component, very specific. But they don't know, since they don't know hypnosis, they don't know NLP, they don't know really, how to work with the unconscious, subconscious mind. It's just a diagnosis system,
Yep.
So sometimes it's even worse. It could be, I mean, could be worse, it could be just not useful because I used to coach with this coach that is an expert in this approach. Yeah. But just by going to somebody and telling them why you're angry, that's not going to solve the anger problem, right? Actually, it's going to make it worse, right?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
because you're focusing, actually, you're giving them more reason to solidify the anger, right? I'm talking about anger because anger is the main emotional component for IBD, Crohn's disease, and ulcerative
Hmm.
colitis. For MS, instead, they call it a motor biological activation. So basically, is when the body is there was something that the unconscious felt that there was an issue about moving your body or something like that. And the interesting part is that when we solve the emotional component, that's when we get the symptoms, most of the time. Not always, but most of the time. So
Hmm.
basically, what happens is that there is for example, I'm going to tell you more better for Crohn's, and then maybe you can see if it applies to MS in your case. Like for Crohn's disease, there is the first emotional
Yeah.
component is this struggle with one's parents, right? And then the secondary emotional component on top of it
Hmm.
is the fear of the symptom. And then, of course, we know that perception is projection, right? So when we have these frames and these
Yep.
patterns that we keep on looking at the world in a certain way, this filthy, disgusting relationship issue with one's parents, then it's triggered by the symptoms themselves. And the fear is also a very magnifying component because if we're afraid of any symptoms, that's gonna amplify the symptoms even by 10 times just by being afraid of it, right? So
Oh,
knowing this
totally.
is very empowering. For MS, what do you think about what I showed to you? Is some basically for MS, as far as I understand, I'm not an expert on the MS biological activation, but there's this they call it motor conflict. So it has something to do with how you're moving your body. And then of course, when you get the
Hmm.
diagnosis, that's gonna increase the fear and it's gonna increase like the symptoms gonna increase the fear, and basically it's gonna create this loop that people get stuck in. That's why it's autoimmune and to them it's like yes, it's degenerative, right? Because people get more and more afraid about not
Hmm.
being able to overcome the symptoms. That's the general idea.
Yeah.
Does it make
What's
sense?
the future like? What's my future gonna look like?
Yes.
Right? I hear that all the time. What's 10 years from now going to be like if all this has happened
Yes.
in 2 years and I don't be able to do the things I wanted to do? Yeah, I can totally. The fear is huge. I think a lot of chronic illness or a lot of the problems that we deal with, fear drives so much. And it's like ultimately you're the driver in that like thing, right? The fear doesn't happen to you. It's you choose to accept it or you say like, nope, I'm not taking that on and
So you were
amplifying it,
awesome
right?
in
So,
doing that
yeah.
for yourself. You were awesome in doing that for yourself. But when you are helping other people that are dealing with all these fears and emotions, what are the most empowering tools or strategies that you use to help them, generally speaking?
Um, well, it's focusing on what they want is a really big part of it that I found. Like when you think about the towards pleasure or away from pain or the don't focus on a pink elephant, what do you focus on when I say that? Right? So a lot of the clients that come to me, yeah, it's like they're very focused on like what is the future going to bring from a place of fear? Very much so. And so when we can start to shift their focus instead of like, I don't want any more symptoms. I don't want numbness. I don't want brain fog. I don't want tingling. I did the same thing and it was like, I don't want any more symptoms. And my mind was like, oh, here's a symptom. Here's a symptom. Here's a symptom. Here's a symptom. Here's another one. And it's like, the unconscious mind provides evidence of whatever we're focused on.
That's
And so
right.
when I started focusing on like every day I'm getting healthier, or I wake up with more energy, or my thoughts are clear, and I'm able to focus on the day and just kind of different perspectives, I started to notice different things. So changing what they focus on is a big part of it, and then clearing negative emotions is huge. Because I've found that MS clients I've worked with, a lot of them, the holistic psychologist calls it the parentified child. But a lot of the clients that I've worked with had a lot of responsibility at a very young age. And that was
Hmm.
myself as well. And so it's like helping them realize that it's not their fault, but also not to blame the parents for what happened when they were growing up. And once we like use some
Oh,
fast phobia or clear out like the whatever's been going on since the past that they've been just kind of dragging behind them, the shifts are pretty cool. Like I have clients that couldn't work, were on disability and are now working and are now doing the things they wanted to do. And it's like so liberating when you let go of all the old crap sometimes, right?
that's awesome. So you use a lot of, I guess, NLP tools or also TLT, things like that, I guess,
Hmm.
right? Time therapy. That's what you
Yeah.
prefer to use, or
Yeah. NLP, hypnosis. One of my favorite techniques that I was going to talk about at Hypno Thoughts a bit too is just kind of modeling the tools to make them for like an MS client because I found perceptual positions. I don't know if that's one
yes,
that you're,
we were talking
but
about it
I've
yesterday,
had
actually.
it's the three chairs. So there's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I use that a
yeah,
lot
like
too.
first person. So you're sitting in the chair as yourself.
Yeah.
And then the second chair is MS. Place
Hmm.
MS in the second chair. And I find that clients often, when they're first talking to their illness, they are yelling, they are swearing, they are angry with their illness. But then when they switch and they sit in the position of their illness and talk back to themselves, there's often like, I'm trying to help you. There's just a different level of compassion and kind of understanding of where the illness, why it's there, what it's trying to serve, how it is actually trying to help them. And so I find that one's really empowering for people.
It
Just,
is. I
it's
got
like this
some.
illness isn't just, it's very cool.
I got some how do you say, goosebumps. Or it was very
Yeah.
cool to hear what you said. Because I use the perception position just the classic way, like the first person, the second person is the person that
Hmm.
David has struggled with, but putting the symptoms
Yeah.
or the sickness is
Hmm.
very, I say, smart. That's a great idea. And
It's it's empowering too, right? Because it's like if you could talk to your illness, what would you tell it? And yeah, it does
good.
start as a lot of anger. Okay, so now if you could step into the shoes of your illness and talk to yourself, what is your illness trying to tell you? And then when they go back to their own position and talk to their illness again, there's often tears, there's often a lot of like, thank you. Honestly, and this realization for future pacing of like, okay, these are the actions I need to start taking. My illness has been telling me this for a decade, maybe 2 decades, and it's like, okay, how can I change this? Right?
So in this way, you are even sub-communicating that the illness, quote unquote illness, is just a messenger, right? Asking
Mm-hmm.
for transformation and evolution. And instead, we've been taught that the
Mm-hmm.
symptoms, the illness, are just showing that there's something wrong with our body, which is not true. The symptoms are
Mm-hmm.
just a call to action. The way one of the ways I like to call it a call to action to create a transformation, right? There is actually,
Yeah,
I always say it
exactly.
wrong. There is this. Can you hear me fine?
Mm-hmm.
There is this
Yeah.
doctor, I think he was a doctor and a scientist from probably Germany, that basically he's one of his famous phrases was like the meaning of the illness is to bring back the person to the meaning of their life.
Hmm.
So like
Yeah.
the symptoms are just telling us to evolve, to learn something, to transform something within ourselves, and also without, because it's very important how we relate to the person that are within our work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to
Yeah. I mean, the
to take
biggest
responsibility.
message I'm always The biggest message I'm always trying to help clients realize, probably the first thing, is like, you are not broken. There's nothing wrong with you, because that's medicine makes us feel like that. I remember that feeling like what is wrong with me? And why am I broken? And why did this happen to me? And it's such a disempowering place to feel like
The victim.
this is just,
The
you got the
victim.
short end of the stick. And it just
Yeah.
sucks to be you. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I lived in the victim. When I was blaming all the things outside of myself, I definitely lived in the victim for a while. And now, I mean, I see people there and I get a little bit frustrated because I'm like, oh no. But it's like, I also can sympathize because I was there. But when you're in victim, you give away all possibility. You give away all choice. And
All
we
the
can
power.
step into
Yes.
like, okay, what can I do? Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Totally. Yes.
Very cool.
So, would you like to add something about for people that are listening to us about how to deal with whatever they're dealing with from maybe an MS point of view, or what is the very first simple step they can take to empower themselves again, and then if they want, they can reach out to you.
Well, something that I think I should layer into this, because I have mentioned that I did have MS. I dealt with the symptoms. I got to the point where the doctor was talking about a wheelchair. I had numbness, I had brain fog. I would walk out of a room and couldn't remember why I left the room. My energy was absolutely terrible. I would fall asleep literally on my drive home from work. I would be driving places and I would not remember where I was. Like, I had a lot of symptoms that were not great to deal with, lots of nerve pain. And I have now been symptom free for more than a decade. So since 2016, I did come off, and I never make advice or give people advice to come off their medication, but I did make the decision that if I want to keep living, I need to do something different. And so I came off my medication, kind of not recommended by my doctor, but that's what I did. So again, this is not advice to do that. I'm just sharing my
Of
story.
course. Of
But I've
course.
been symptom free since a few months after I came off my medication. And looking back, I had already done work before that. I'd already changed what I was eating. I'd already got out of a toxic relationship. I changed my toxic work situation. So I'd already done some of the work, but I was finally in a place where I felt supported, I guess, enough to come
Very
off the
important.
meds.
That's
So
very
I have been symptom free for 10 years, which is an important thing to share because,
that's awesome.
like,
Yes, of
yes,
course.
I get it. I've dealt with the symptoms, but what I hope people will get is kind of a like, oh, huh. Okay, if she could do it, maybe there's a chance. And so, I mean, the first thing that I share across like all social platforms, as I said, like pink elephant, you focus on the pink elephant. If I tell you not to think of a pink elephant, that's exactly what you're going to think about. So what if you can start focusing on something else rather than, oh, symptom, 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 symptom. Every day I'm getting healthier and healthier. I literally have shared that with TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and have like dozens and dozens of people saying, and it's not the perfect line, but it's something that at least is focusing on what you want,
Of
right?
course. Totally.
And I get DMs almost daily of people that are like, so I used to feel really tired when I like throughout my week, and this week I have more energy. It's weird. I'm like, is it? Is it though? Because it's what you're focusing on. But people who are like, oh, I used to like be imbalanced when I'd go to do these different things, and now I'm not, or I'm actually finding that I can focus more clearly, or things start to change when you start focusing on what you want. So I would say that's step one. That's my free, like, do this and see what happens. But yeah, if anyone's looking for support to figure out kind of what's going on with them from an MS perspective, a free consultation with me would be the best place to start for that from that
Awesome.
perspective.
Yes. Share your website or your contact information. I'm
Hmm.
also gonna put it in the note for this video.
Wonderful.
And yes, I also wanted to point out how important it is to feel supported, right? To have
Hmm.
other people that are supporting us within the choice that we're making to solve this in a different way, right? Because that's very important. Also from this biological point of view. Because as humans, we need to be in our
Mhm.
little tribe, in our little supportive group of friends or family. And that's something that we need to create sometime because it's not always easy to have it, right? To feel supportive about what we're gonna do.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. One thing that I heard a while ago, well, I have a couple notes on that. I was a part of a bunch of MS support groups in the past. And I remember when I did start changing my diet and I actually started feeling better for the first time, like after years, my meds were like $50,000 a year. So I had invested a lot into the medical side of things and just kept getting sicker. And within like a month of changing what I was eating, I started to feel a bit better. And so when I went into the MS support groups that I'd been in for a while and said, like, I'm actually feeling better, people were like, "Oh, that's great. What med are you on?" And I was like, "No, no, no. I changed what I was eating." I got kicked out of every one of those support groups. So
You
sometimes
were
when you
kicked
do
out.
something different, suddenly you're not one of them. Kicked out of all of them. They were like, "You are not one of us anymore. You are preying on these people." I was like, "No, no, no, I'm not. I'm just sharing what I've been doing." I wasn't a nutritionist at the time. I wasn't a practitioner. So it can, when it comes to support, yes, it's very helpful to have support, but make sure that, yeah, the support is like look for people who are doing what you want to be doing rather
That's
than
right.
looking for support for people that are in the same
No, no,
suffering that you're
support
in,
support from
because
people that
sometimes the
agree.
support
Yeah,
won't be there.
totally. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's what I
another
was saying.
thing that I heard that was really beneficial, I I interviewed a woman for, because I have a podcast as well, and I interviewed a woman who was diagnosed with cancer. And what she did after she was diagnosed is she wrote a letter to everyone in her sphere, her friends, her family, her acquaintances, colleagues, and just said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know this is what's happened. I was diagnosed and I'm choosing to go a natural way with this. And I appreciate that some of you may not agree with what I'm doing, and you may want to share your opinions and to tell me why it's wrong and to tell me all these different things, but I respectfully request that if that's you, keep it to yourself. Because I'm looking to create like a positive sphere, a positive bubble to move forward with what I'm doing." And
Totally.
so, if that's something that you're worried about, if you're trying something different and you're worried about how people are going to react to it, that might be something that's helpful for you as well. Because people are going to have different opinions, and that's
Totally.
okay, but you want to make sure that it's not affecting you in a negative way. So, yeah.
That's very smart. It's very smart. That's awesome. Well, thank you
Cool.
so much for this. Um, so I'm going to
Thank
share
you.
your contact information. I'm going to share my presentation for GVCA soon, and I'm looking forward to meet you eventually in person. Maybe in
Sounds
Detroit
good. There
somewhere.
is
We'll see.
background noise.
Yeah, there is some background noise. Yes, I need to settle things better
Yeah,
next time. Sorry. Anytime, anyway. Probably it's better
that's all right.
to stop the recording here now. Thank you so much for sharing. So let me have your contact
Thank
information
you
and I'll
so much
share
for
this.
having me. This is great.
My pleasure. I'm gonna stop the recording
Wonderful.
now.
Will do.
Thank you for listening to us. Thank you, Kate.